What's up, everybody? This is Tim from Arm Wrestling Secrets, and today we're in Logan Canyon in northern Utah, right down by the Logan River. And we're going to be taking a little walk and talk today, and we're going to talk about what happened to me since my last video. Okay, guys, so when I made my last video, I had just lost my job in Hawaii, okay? But let me take you back in time a little bit. So, and to give you just a little bit of background, I was working for a fitness company, and I was doing personal training, and I was also helping to manage 4 corporate gyms, okay? That's like a fitness center inside of a corporation. And they had personal training and all kinds of regular stuff that any other fitness center would have. It was just inside of a corporation. That's kind of what I was doing. So, I'll make a real long story short here. So remember, there was a virus and a pandemic that came in, I want to say March of 2020. Excuse me. That's when it started affecting everything around me. That's when I started seeing everybody wearing those masks everywhere you go. And then by the time it was December of 2020, they wanted to force a shot on the population. And I refused to do that. Okay? So at first, they said, take it so you don't get sick. And I'm a pretty healthy guy, and I trust my immune system. And so I thought, no, that's okay. If other people want to do it, that's fine. I'm not going to do that. Okay? And then they said, well, take it to keep everyone else safe. Okay? And that didn't make a lot of sense to me. If they were doing it themselves, they should be safe. So, and you know what I'm talking about. So, after that, they said, take it so you don't kill your grandmother. Okay? And my grandparents were already dead. But after that, they said, you know, if that's not good enough, take it or you're going to lose your right to go to a restaurant. Okay? And then they said, do it or you can't go to the gym. Okay? And that included the staff. So that's when it hit me personally, is when I was obviously working in fitness, all of a sudden my boss said, you have to go do it or you're going to lose your job, right? So, obviously I wasn't going to do that, but they were threatening my job over it. They were saying, do it or you'll lose your job. And I thought, you know, when this started, it was like you had a choice. If you feel like it'll keep you safer or you feel like it's healthy for you, you can take it, right? And then all of a sudden, fast forward a few months later, and they're saying, you either take it or you're going to lose your job. You can't be part of society, okay? And so I'm going to tell you something really interesting. I played a funny game because I could see where it was going before we got to the final endpoint, which I'll tell you about. I could see where it was going, and so I noticed something really interesting. Okay, all my clients, and you could say a lot of my personal training clients, a lot of the people that I was working with over the years at my fitness company. Okay, at first, a lot of them were like, oh yeah, I don't know if I'm going to take that. And a lot of them were travelers. A lot of them had pretty good amount of money too. But the thing that really affected their decision was when they said, take it or you can't fly anymore. And some of the other countries in the world, remember, they said, take it or you can't fly into the country. Other countries were saying, take it or you can't leave the country. Okay, remember that. So the interesting part of the story is that slowly but surely, I saw almost all of the clients that I knew go ahead and take that. And it had nothing to do with them worrying about getting sick. A few of them, yeah. A few of them were like totally terrified that they were going to die any day. And the rest of them, they were like, well, I don't want to be kicked out of a restaurant. I don't want to not be able to fly, right? I was facing the same decisions they were. I was being told, this is in Hawaii. I don't know what it was like where you are. In some places, I think it was much worse, maybe. In other places, it was a little more lenient. And all I can say is, you all know what I'm talking about. It's just on a different spectrum depending on where you were, okay? But I'm telling you my experience. I'm not getting into any theories or anything. I'm just telling you my experience living in Honolulu, Hawaii during the pandemic and why I pretty much was forced to leave. So the last part of the story I wanted to tell with my clients is that a lot of them, they started to turn, and this is my opinion, they started to become particularly evil. Because here I was, I hadn't taken anything, but I was telling them that I had. I was telling them, yeah, I did it, of course. Why not? Because they were all just, that's all they could talk about. And they were getting to that part where they were blaming all the people that hadn't for all the problems in society. And so the interesting thing for me was pretending with them that I had taken it and listening to what they would say. And I would ask them things like, what do you think should happen to the people that haven't taken that? And some of the people would be like, oh, they're criminals. They should be put into a prison camp. I had a few people that actually said that. Okay? Forget about losing your job. They said you should not be able to participate in society. One of the trainers I worked with, one of the other trainers who I'd worked with for years, same thing. I didn't tell him the truth. I didn't tell him I didn't take it anything. But I told him I had, and I was just asking him his opinion about something, just like a regular conversation. And I said, hey man, what do you think's going to happen to all those people that didn't take it? It's kind of crazy. And he's like, oh, I think they'll just have to start their own society somewhere. So the people around me started to go totally crazy. And the news started to go totally crazy. It was the same story everywhere. Okay. And then when it came to me, they finally mandated the shot in Hawaii or Honolulu. Just before I made my last video. And I was faced with a situation where it was take it or you lose your job. And so anyway, I finally had a showdown with the boss and I was like, yeah, I'm not taking that and I don't want to take it. So anyway, I got fired. Okay, that's the only reason I got fired. I did a great job personal training. I did a great job managing 4 fitness centers, but I didn't want to take the shot, so I didn't have a right to participate in society. That was the position, that's the situation I was faced with. When I made that last video, that's the situation I was going through, okay? So, I said, well, there's no way, no matter what, I'm gonna take that, and there's no way I'm gonna be forced to try to do something like that, okay, against my will, okay? So, I had to make the decision, I gotta leave Hawaii, and I gotta leave fast, okay? Now, I can tell you something about living in Hawaii, and I think all of you already know this anyway. You've seen a few of my other videos maybe on Hawaii, but it's extremely expensive, okay? Anyway, now once you lose your job, it's extraordinarily impossible to live, okay? So I officially left Hawaii on the 1st of December of 2021, okay? I made the last video a few months before that, but that was basically when I was packing everything up. So what I did was I looked at the situation and I said, well, I'm not going to take the shot. And so I can't participate as a fitness trainer in that society, okay? Along with a lot of other people, including doctors, nurses, firefighters, police, all the soldiers, okay? There's so many different people who, my son got fired. He was working at a restaurant. He was just a cook in a restaurant, and they fired him because he didn't want to take it. Okay, so it happened to a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life, but in my case, fitness training, working in a gym, that was a no-go in Honolulu in 2021. So I had to make the decision to leave. I packed up all my stuff. My wife had to shut down her businesses. My sons had to get all their school stuff, and they had to shut down what they were doing. And we left and we moved under extreme stress to Utah, okay? Now, I went to the University of Utah in Salt Lake City in 1996, and I graduated in 2000. And so I had already had experience with Utah, and I really loved it. It's very beautiful, and it's secluded, and you can see the mountains behind me here. There's mountains, and it's a pretty place, okay? And there's a lot of good people here. So I knew a place to go, and this is the place I decided to go, but it took me a couple years just to getting back to what happened to me. It took me a couple years to get back on my feet. I spent all my money just staying alive in Hawaii for the last 3 months after they took my job away from me. It wasn't like I could go get some other job. There was no one, and it certainly wouldn't have paid me enough to pay for my house and everything, which is really expensive up there. So I worked a couple of jobs when I came out here. I just worked in a couple of restaurants. I was a chef before in my former life, and it's something I'd done as a younger man, and it was something I was always pretty good at, and I didn't mind it. So I worked in a couple of restaurants, and I took out a bunch of credit cards. I went into a bunch of debt, and I pulled myself out of that hole and got myself back to where now I'm owning my own personal training studio, okay, which you just saw in the last video. Okay, so that's pretty much what happened to me. And it was extraordinarily stressful, but I feel really good about it, okay? And so all I can really say now, just to close the video without going on and on, is I'm really glad to be back. I'm really glad I stood my ground. I feel really proud of myself for that. And all I can really say is, when it comes to my freedom, you can pry it out of my cold, dead hands. I'm locked and loaded for the last dance. I'll see you guys in the next one.